everyone. This is Pam Reese with Adventures in Aging. And again, I'm here with my friend
Gary Vandenberg. Hey, Pam, it's great to be back for another episode here. And thank you to our sponsor, Stridelight. Stridelight.net provides quality diabetic shoes, custom inserts, orthotics, all lower extremity needs. For over 20 years, they've been providing quality feet-related products. Please mention Stridelight to your doctor. Thank you for being our sponsor, Stridelight.net.
And thank you to our listeners. We appreciate all of you. Please, if you like us, pass us on to your friends. If you don't like us, maybe they will. So please share our podcast with others.
I would say in the last week, I've had more people, calling me or interacting with me about our podcast than ever before. Isn't that great? People
are
commenting.
That.
And are we searching to try to find the latest episode, when it's coming out, those types of things. So
no, this is so exciting because I can tell you all, Gary and I truly enjoy our interaction together during this time of our podcast, and it's usually off the cuff.
It's an adventure. And what is today's topic, Pam?
Gary, we're talking about traveling adventures today.
Traveling in cars and boats and planes and all those things.
Whatever it is.
Wow.
Travel in every aspect.
Travel is one of those things. I've always thought it being a little bit of a status symbol. I remember working one time, and it was we had quarterly board of directors meetings, and I was in charge of pulling these guys together.
Yep.
Right? And they would show up every 3 or 6 months, and all they talked about was, hey, where did you go since I saw you last? And I went to Europe, and then some guy would outdo him. I went to outer space or something. I mean, everybody had like these weird adventures of
the more exotic, the better.
Oh yeah, it was a status symbol. These guys had already made all their millions of dollars, so the only thing they had left was to brag about their wild trips and adventures.
So I think the same person you're talking about, I worked for once, right?
Right.
And I was a regional director, a VP, whatever. Anyway, there were always quarterly meetings. The big discussion at every one of those meetings was where the next meeting was going to be held.
Yeah. Planning ahead.
Planning ahead.
Locally, yeah. We would have meetings at state parks and different things that, and exotic places also.
We went to New Orleans, Las Vegas, big venues with beautiful hotels and the big dinners. And honestly, as an employee, it was really fun and great, but are those the trips you want to take with your coworkers?
I don't think so. And then,
right.
And then bringing it closer to home, I've got 3 kids, and the middle one, he is quite the traveler. Okay.
Really?
And this was several years ago. It's like 10 o'clock at night, and he drives down the street. He's in Florida at that point. And he goes, well, should I take a left, right, go across the street to the bar there? He goes, I think I'll just drive to Key West, which was like 8 hours away, just on no planning.
But there is something to be said for the spontaneous travel.
And then he's always good at planning out trips. And he planned a trip that he left from Florida, went all the way to California, up to Oregon, and all the way back to Ohio.
Is he stopping at destinations?
Oh, he's one of those that's like your Google Maps. Every hour he's got, here's where I'm supposed to be. And
that would be too much pressure on me.
And just recently, my other son, they took off to New England. They planned it out, to the second, try to where they were going to be, what they were going to do, and quite an adventure. And for people in their mid-20s, but we've traveled our whole lives. What was some of your earliest travels when you were growing up?
Yeah, so when I was growing up, our family didn't take big exotic vacations. A vacation for us was going to family reunions in West Virginia and camping out with all the family members, right? The big family reunion at the campground. Yeah, my family, I think we went to Niagara Falls maybe every 2 years. That seemed to be kind of a big trip for us.
Okay. I know when I was growing up, we would go to Florida, Naples, Florida.
We never went to Florida.
And my dad would always do this 2-week trip. What was great for like 10 years, we got out of school and we got our homework to take with us type of thing. And there was 4 of us, and then my parents that would go to this. My oldest brother had gone off to college, but my father would stand out there in the water. He didn't know how to swim, but he'd stand in this water up to his neck.
Yeah.
He'd have a hat on and sunglasses and just float out there for 2 weeks straight.
I love that.
And then the rest of us would get royally sunburned. I mean, I remember getting fried every year, just baked. But it was a big adventure, and, it'd take like I swear it took 2 days to get to Florida.
Yeah. So when I was around 12, my family discovered Ocean City, New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
And that became a yearly annual family vacation.
Oh,
And so my whole entire family for the next, I mean, to this day, everyone meets in Ocean City, New Jersey for a fun week.
Oh, okay.
And just a great thing that has been passed down to me and my brother's children and the grandchildren and still enjoyed by all. But the biggest trip I remember as a kid was when I was, I don't know, maybe 14. Myself, mom, dad, my grandma, my brother, all piled into my dad's Chrysler New Yorker. Mm-hmm. Air conditioning broke. Took a big 2-week vacation out west.
Right.
And we were going to go to Colorado. And of course, along the way, my mom wanted to stop at Mount Rushmore and Gateway to the West,
sure,
and had all these plans. And I can tell you, Gary, even thinking back to it, we would drive for hours and hours and hours crammed into that car. And then when it came time to stop to find a hotel, my mom was really fussy. Mm-hmm. And literally she would have to get out of the car first, go and have them show her what a room looked like.
Yeah, I think that was commonplace to do that inspection of the room.
Oh, and then it never met her expectations, so we'd drive another 30 miles to find another place.
Gosh, I know, one thing that comes back, I think it's Fontana. Is that somewhere in Pennsylvania or New York or something?
I don't even know that
it's like
destination.
It's like a big lake that has a dam to it.
Okay.
Right? And here on this family trip, we all go there. And two things that I remember about that trip, that was one of those earliest memories, was one that we go hiking and all of a sudden there's like a bat in someone's hair. It's like,
what?
Isn't that
that's the memory. That's what
the
you
memory.
remember from
Right.
that trip.
That and the other thing is my dad, even though he didn't swim, he wanted to get in this boat, a little like speedboat.
Yeah.
And we're out there and zipping around this lake and there's a big dam and then there's this like big whirlpool kind of thing. We're all looking at it like, we don't need to get any closer to the whirlpool. Sure enough, the boat stalls. He just never rented a boat before. We're all, I'm like 10 years old.
Oh my gosh.
And he's trying trying to start the,
and you're all sitting there.
And we're coming closer and closer to this whirlpool that's going to suck us into the dam, we keep thinking.
This is a frightening experience.
Yeah, that's why it's memorable. Hey, you remember being, sucked into the dam. Sure enough, the last minute, the speedboat starts up and we take off.
Oh my gosh, just like in a movie.
Yeah, and it's one of those, you don't have to bring this up to your mom kind of thing.
Oh, right. The time we almost died on vacation.
And then, is there any other trips that you did? How about in high school? Did you go anywhere?
So again, not big trips to Florida or whatever. I think through high school it was still Ocean City, and the Niagara Falls trip every couple of years because I think my mom and dad felt we're close. That's going to be a big deal. But later on, when I was in college, my first trip to Florida was spring break.
Well, you were one of those people.
I was. My very first trip to Florida, heard about it, right? My whole life.
Yeah.
In fact, Gary, when I was in high school, the younger teachers that we had, I can remember after spring break coming back to school and they're all talking about
what a great time they had.
Yes, their Florida trips.
Well, they weren't that much older than you.
No.
Yeah.
So, I did do the spring break thing every year when I was in college. Had a blast, went to Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Daytona.
Took them all in.
But I can tell you, I don't know that it was as crazy back then as it is now.
Oh, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it definitely
Maybe
was.
at some level, right?
I know when I got out of college, a friend of mine was living in Washington State, and he said, come out and we'll all go on a ski trip. So this other buddy and I, we fly all the way out from Ohio to Seattle, and there's no snow there, right? Mm-hmm. And if you've ever seen like a U.S. map, it always makes it look like everything's closer together. So we go, we should just drive on. Look, it's only like an inch. We should drive to Lake Tahoe, right?
Wow.
This is like, 10 hours later.
Yes.
It seemed like the next day. We show up there. There's no snow in Lake Tahoe kind of thing. Where should we go next? Hey, look, there's Sun Valley, Idaho. We should drive there for snow, right?
Oh, so you're so spontaneous.
And we drove all over the place. But the funny thing about it was, just the funny stories along the way. I remember diving. Don't ever do this, listeners. I dove into like a whirlpool, or whatever.
You're such an adventurer.
Where there's like 6 people sitting there and someone goes, it'd be funny if I just dove in there. It's one of those things.
And your friends are,
yeah. And then we were climbing over these fences and there was this frozen swimming pool, and I remember getting on the ice and stuff. It's just stupid, insane kind of stuff.
Well, you were young and you thought you were immortal.
We were immortal. Yes, we were. It was a great time doing those types of things. And then, over the years, growing up in the Midwest, we went to the Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
That was kind of the big thing, and a couple of things up in Michigan. And actually, I talked to somebody recently about Mackinac Bridge. They never even heard of it. Well, Mackinac's bridge been there 60 years.
Yes. So I went to Mackinac Island for the first time for my nephew's wedding about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was kind of shocked at how beautiful. I in the lakes around Michigan are ocean-like.
I'm very impressed by it. I had some buddies, and we went up to ride our bicycles around Mackinac. And once you get out of the city, there's a whole other side of that island no one ever goes to. It's not
it's gorgeous.
And just all the different dunes. You get over to Traverse City and all those places, and we just had a blast. And it's amazing how close these things are to you. And most people don't travel. They travel exotically around the world and things like that.
So I had no idea what a tourist or vacation-y spot Michigan was until I started working there and traveling more and more to Michigan. And I just learned that, wow, there are some really beautiful places to visit here, plus skiing. Like in northern Michigan, there are some great ski resorts.
Oh, yeah. And I still, believe it or not, I still continue to ski. I skied this year, and I'm the oldest guy out there. Everyone has their designer outfits on.
You and me too, Gary.
And I've got it's like going to amusement parks. The last time I was at an amusement park, I looked around going, man, I'm like the oldest guy here by like a lot.
No.
What am I doing here?
So we talked about this before, but I went skiing several times this year or last year and hadn't done it in a long time.
Oh.
And I kept thinking, I'm the one prone to maybe falling and having a fractured hip on the slope. I was the oldest one.
Oh, yeah. I've become much more accident prone, believe me. I broke my thumb skiing one time, and then a couple of years ago, I did something, and I always know I'm about to crash, but I didn't realize this, and I pulled my Achilles tendon. Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
And so I hobble over to the infirmary there that's at the ski place.
Right.
And it was so funny because
they take one look at you and they know you're
one person
injured.
says like you'll never walk again,
right.
And the other person says it's no problem, that happens all the time. Everyone had their opinions.
Yeah.
And it was just so funny, and it hurt like crazy for a couple of weeks. But
did you go back out on the slopes after?
Oh yeah, I mean not that day, but in the future, yeah.
Sure.
I just go a little slower and think I better slow down.
So. A trip I would love to take, never have, but so many people have, is a ski trip to Vail. One of the big ski.
If they have snow, by the way.
Right. But I got to tell you, that's kind of a status thing too. Oh, where'd you go?
Oh, Vail. Oh, Vail. Oh, wow.
Oh,
that's
look at
different than ours is peak and peak around here.
Right.
Like,
mine's Boston Mills.
And I know recently, we've also gone on bicycle adventures, like you said, on bicycles and anymore, I think the last couple of times I've been on a bike, I've kind of like crashed. I just did this
Gary,
recently.
Are you the one running into the curb?
I came down some hill, and at the bottom was this little whatever wet area. And it was green, which meant I should have processed this faster, but it was like a sheet of ice. And
oh my
next thing you know, I'm laying on my back.
Hope you're wearing a helmet.
We're definitely wearing a helmet, but that doesn't help the rest of my body and those types of things. But over the years, traveling, I've been fortunate to be with companies that seem to have places, these nursing homes, retirement centers, all over the place.
Yep.
And I was thinking some of the places that were kind of exotic I went to. One was a retirement center that's on the Columbia River in Oregon. Mm-hmm. And out in the middle of nowhere, they had this property donated. It's like 90 miles from Portland and the Dells, and was quite interesting, beautiful. Had to drive back and forth to see that. And I remember the what's called the regional boss out there. He'd always say, now make sure you take a few minutes and enjoy this stuff, because there was beautiful waterfalls and the river there and all those types of things. Where have you been on your
Oh, my
work
gosh.
relations?
So business travel, right? So people that don't participate or have positions where they have business travel are a little envious sometimes. Oh, you get to travel. Let me tell everybody who has not had a job like that, it's not exotic. Yeah, there's not a fun thing about it. And in my jobs, I never went anywhere good. It was always rural Iowa.
Oh, bumpkin land.
Oh, it was in the middle of nowhere. Nursing facilities just out of touch with reality. Having to find a place to stay 30 miles away from where you're working.
Yeah.
But I will say, the best places that I went with business travel were Michigan.
Okay.
And then, I did have some facilities in Wisconsin and then up in the Upper Peninsula.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Michigan.
Yeah. But I always somehow tied my Wisconsin trip into the UP.
Right.
And I totally enjoyed those areas.
Oh, yeah. Somehow I was with luckier companies then because we were in like Washington State, beautiful places there in the middle, Yakima's in the middle, beautiful places like that. Like I said, Portland, Salt Lake City, the whole area there, Idaho.
Yeah.
I love that part of the world. And then down to like, Louisiana, just weird kind of places.
You went further out than I did.
Florida, Georgia, the Virginias, the West Virginia, all those kind of places.
So my business travel was always more Midwesterny, but did travel quite a bit to Kentucky, Tennessee, Illinois, Ohio, of course.
Yeah.
And it was never exotic, never real fun. And plus, as you know, Gary, in our jobs, we didn't have a lot of downtime.
Oh no, it's I still see these signs. I'm driving by. The other day I drove by something, and again, it's in the middle of Iowa.
Yeah.
And it was an art display that some farmer had just welded a bunch of stuff together. And I said, you know what? I got 5 minutes. I might as well swing in and see this guy. He welded everything together. He wasn't there. It's just a roadside thing. And it's kind of weird. He took like a 300, what do you call them? Those saws, the round saws. Yep. And he like welded them all together.
Yep.
But I know in Michigan, when I used to travel up there, they had some guy that planted all these tractors, old rusty tractors down. He stuck them all in the ground kind of thing.
What?
Sticking around. Yeah. People
That's
are kind of odd
weird
like that.
Thing.
But is there any place that you wish you would have been traveling to over the years?
My gosh. So just like one of my most memorable and fun trips was to the Netherlands. And
you did go.
I did go to the Netherlands and did a tour for 2 weeks, not with work. And this, I wasn't young, right? I was in my 30s. And that was fabulous. Going to, see where the Vikings, the castles, went on some boat tours, traveled by train across the country. That was a fabulous, fabulous trip.
Wow. I didn't realize that you're that international.
One time. Only one time, Gary, unless you count Canada, the Bahamas.
Outside of Canada, and I'm one of those few people, Pam, maybe I'm just a cheapskate. I have no desire to travel the world. I've got friends and relatives.
I am in shock to hear you say
that
this.
have gone to India and you're, all over the place, and they come back with these wonderful exotic stories, and I'm like, I'm really not into.
Oh my gosh! So one of my desires in life was to always be a traveler. In fact, there were times on and off throughout my life where I thought, I think I should own a travel agency so I can be that person to go check out vacation destinations and tell others, but more for myself.
Wouldn't that be fun? We should do an Adventures in Aging,
cruise.
Cruise. That's where.
Have you ever been on a cruise?
No.
Gary, you're sheltered. You're so sheltered.
I've been on boats.
Oh my gosh. So one of my favorite vacations is a cruise, but it must be a really good cruise because I've been on good and bad.
Yeah.
And you really want to be on a good ship.
I think I'd like to be on a cruise. Yeah, I could definitely relate to that. It was so funny when you're saying that. My memories come back on as we're talking here. And the earliest boat ride I recall was the Good Time 2. You ever hear the Good Time?
We went on school field trips on the Good Time too.
So I'm in like third grade. We're all on the Good Time too. This was when Cleveland, for those that aren't around, the river caught on fire.
Yeah, right.
And it was like inches of crud and sludge.
Yes.
And here's the cruise boat going through it all with these kids in third grade.
Oh my gosh.
And so the highlight of the trip was whatever sandwich they gave us, we all were seeing who could throw it the furthest into the mud and the sludge into the river.
It's not like that today, everybody.
It's beautiful. People actually will swim
It's been cleaned up and it's very nice today, but there was a time.
Oh yeah. I've when you're thinking about traveling like that, I always wanted to be that guy on the bus with all the senior citizens. There's still time for me to do this.
You are killing me.
And, the guy that said, hey, everybody, we were only 10 miles from whatever,
And start picking out destinations and being the tour guide.
Oh, yeah. And so I actually ran into a guy that did that. And he said the biggest thing they would do is he would take a chalk and he would chalk on the tire and mark spots like 1 through 30 or something. And people would do a lottery. So when they'd stop, whichever number was high or low on the tire, they won. So everyone on the bus was excited to see who was going to win.
Oh, my gosh. So let me ask you this. Are you one of those travelers, obviously not internationally, but within the United States, where you go do all the tourist attractions?
No, not really. No. And, but talking about the bus, I got to go back to the bus.
Okay.
So when I was like 16 years old, this is one of those highlight trips of my whole life, is they bring up at our church, hey, they're having a youth convention in New Orleans, right?
Oh.
Hey, we should think about going.
This is a big trip.
So they piled.
It had nothing to do with the spiritual aspect, did it?
They piled a handful of us from our church into this bus, right?
Right.
And we picked up people all the way down to New Orleans. We get off that bus and we were so bad. I mean,
You were the worst kids.
We were the worst. We committed more sins in the
I bet you did.
We don't know what happened to our chaperones. If there was any, we don't remember.
They were off having their own sins.
And I ran into somebody years later, like 20 years later, and I said something. They said, was anyone in charge there? We don't remember anybody. That was so crazy.
And if there was, who knew?
But there was like 30,000 teenagers in New Orleans, and we're all like, everyone was just insane, right?
And plus you're teenagers, so there's not a lot you can really get into trouble with, but I'm sure you found your trouble.
We were in big trouble the
okay,
whole time,
all right.
believe me.
And didn't get caught.
And we bumped into a lot of other people and want to be in big trouble, too, at the same time. So
looking back, those are fun days.
But we were on this crazy bus, and they didn't stop. There was no, hotel. We just...
Right. You drive straight through.
And we had to do talent shows, and people were singing and dancing, and that was kind of the fun part. But I don't remember anybody in charge. So that was always
Maybe that's why today when the kids go on these big trips, they ask for parents, like one parent to 4 kids or something.
My wife, she goes with her school at times, and they have people sitting in the hallways, and they go to hotels that have locked windows. And everyone signs all these,
it's such a liability, right?
Oh my gosh!
If anything happens to those children, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, we never did the Washington. That kind of came later after. Did your kids ever go to that?
Yeah, my kids went on some big trips with when they were in high school. When I was in high school, I think our biggest trip was to the state capitol, and that was kind of a big deal, but that was it.
Okay. But it seems like, going to Washington, D.C. is great. And those that haven't gone to these kind of places, and how close things are too. When I lived in Memphis, the last day after 6 years there, or the last weekend, was to go see Graceland, right? People come from all over the world every August to celebrate Dead Elvis week there every year.
Oh my gosh.
And we wait till the last days to go in there. So I'm a big believer that there's things within an hour of where you live that you probably have never gone to.
So, in my job, we had a nursing facility in Memphis. I spent months and months and months in Memphis. Never once had a desire to go to Elvis Land or Graceland, but a place I really wanted to go, and I only stayed 2 miles from it, never did, was St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital.
Yeah,
I would say all the time, hey, I want to carve out a couple hours in my day and go see this hospital because I'm so enamored with their work and what they do. And I never did, and I was right there. I did, however, take the opportunity to go visit Beale Street.
Oh, Beale Street, yes.
Yeah.
What a fun place that is.
That's fun.
For those people that are living in that area or traveling down there. That's a wonderful location.
Right.
And if you heard my last podcast about Memphis in May, that was a great opportunity there too with rock and roll things.
Right.
It's interesting as we vacation, we do family vacations, or we try to every once in a while. And we end up with 20 people all in a place.
You take your whole family.
Yeah.
So I am a big take my whole family type of person. I love to take the family vacations with my kids and the grandkids. And it just, for me, it's my happy place, right? I have all the people I love most in life with me.
Oh yeah. They're all around you. It's great. And The only challenge is there's some people that want to do something all the time and some people that don't want to do anything.
So my husband, right, is probably the opposite of that because of what you just said. How do you corral these 20-some people to go to the same dinner location?
Impossible.
To have the same agenda.
It is impossible. I call it the military maneuver.
Right. It's probably best if you're going to do that to have everyone, you're on your own, but let's get together at this time.
Isn't that something? And so, we go to a little island, Washington Island. I'll give them a shout out up in Wisconsin. And there's a family house up there of a relative.
That you rent?
It's part of their family, I guess.
Oh, okay.
We all pile in there and, sleep in somewhat.
They can't wait till you leave.
And, it's a shared house. People
got it.
Come and go there. But wonderful and very relaxing and wonderful things if you ever get a chance to go to Washington Island, Wisconsin.
So, Gary, there are different types of trips for different people, right? There's the adventure trip. There's traveling to high-risk areas like Syria, right? I mean, there are some very high-risk areas in the world that you're told not to go to, but there are these adventuresome people that still want to go to those areas.
Right.
There's the romantic vacation. There's the peaceful vacation. And then there's the staycation.
The staycation.
Yeah.
Where you sit in your backyard and
pretty much stay in your, we're having a staycation. That just means you're going nowhere.
You're going nowhere. Well, I don't know how that's an adventure.
It's not an adventure to me.
Oh, my gosh. I know. And there's people that every year they go to campers. I was talking to some lady recently, and she goes, every weekend we go sit in our camper,
yes,
at the same spot. And maybe they socialize with other people. But,
That's a big deal to people just like boaters. Yeah. So when my children were little and growing up, we had a boat. We had it docked up by Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. It's a commitment. So from April through October, every weekend you're going to your boat.
Yeah. So that's an adventure there.
It's a weekend adventure.
So I'm sure, camaraderie with your friends, neighbors, your whatever. Did you take anybody with you up there? Was this fun?
So when you're a boater and you're docked at a marina, you become fast friends with everyone on your dock, right?
Right.
Everybody meets Friday night. Everybody brings a ton of food. It's all laid out on the dock. It's a party from Friday till Sunday. It truly is. And your boat, right? You're living on your boat, but hopefully the weather's good enough that you're outside most of the time. But believe me, I have been there through stormy weekends, horrible cold weekends where you're sitting inside of the boats. There's not a lot of fun with that. I can tell you that's not a lot of fun.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I recently talked to a couple of people that have traveled all around the world, and I was asking them for some feedback on things. So one of them's my brother-in-law, and this guy, when I said, I know you've traveled more than anybody I know, he goes, well, I've got 1.5 million miles on Delta.
What? He doesn't pay for any flights anymore.
And 800,000 on American or United, he said.
Wow.
And I said, that is just crazy. I said, that's why I'm trying to contact you, about the travel. And, of course, he said, well, there is a big difference between business travel and leisure travel. He's traveled all over the place.
100%.
And so, I said, well, give me some, feedback. Our listeners would be interested. He says, well, most important is if it's business travel, take care of yourself. Make sure you get enough rest, which I never do.
Oh, I don't. I don't like hanging out in a hotel. I don't like it. Yeah. And so I'll either work very, very late and be exhausted when I get back to the room, or I'm out driving around by myself just trying to figure out what I can do to entertain myself, until later.
And so I said, what other suggestions do you have? He says, really, instead of taking the last flight home, which I always do.
I always do, too.
Or last week I left my house at 4 a.m. and got home at 2:30 in the morning. How's that sound?
I can't stand it.
And it's like, what? Is this ridiculous or what? He says, well, yeah, he used to do that. He doesn't do that anymore.
I don't blame him.
After, millions of miles there. But also he said, be reasonable, don't tire yourself out, eat right, those kind of things. Food choices. He says when you're traveling, food choices are limited at times. People don't bring food with them.
Yep.
They eat, lousy food. They never exercise. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Even though these
It's a vacation, Gary.
No, this is business travel.
Well,
This is,
obviously some people are enjoying it.
You know, they just kind of, like you've said before, you're exhausted, you plop down in your room.
You do tend to stop for fast food.
Yeah, and those types of things. And then he said, well, but when it comes to leisure travel, see, his thing was, I asked him, places that were cool. He said, oh, Ukraine, and
come on.
And he's telling me
This
about
is status.
It's very civilized, very advanced, those types of things. Young, vibrant, exciting kind of people. They want to be like Americans. They want to be, like Europeans, Americans. Those types of things. Great food, great culture, warm, friendly people. And he loves Germany. He said, Germany, it's great food, warm, friendly. They speak English. Because he made a big point to tell me that most of these places, speak English.
Right.
It's kind of the primary thing. Beautiful castles, those kind of things.
I would love to go see the castles.
And then, but, it's the opposite of my son. He says, get 2 or 3 things you want to hit,
This is what I always heard. Don't overcommit on your vacation.
Yeah. Relax. If you get there, if you hit all 3, great. If you hit 2 of them, that's great. Try to stay local, eat the food that's local food.
Well, Gary, you've never been out of the country, right? You've not even been to a Caribbean island?
I've been into Canada.
Okay. All right. So I've been to the Caribbean many, many times, whether it's cruises or going to stay, and to the Bahamas. My husband and I have been to Belize a couple times, and I can tell you, like in Belize, it's beautiful. We had great time, but after about 3 days, there's something different about the food, and we were just trying to order pizzas, and even the pizza didn't taste right.
Gosh. So
that's like when you go to Mexico, right? Sometimes you're having a hard time digesting that food.
And so then I said, what is your worst experience? And he said, the worst experience, believe it or not, is not being able to close your suitcase. Isn't that funny?
Oh, I'm like that all the time.
No matter you're at. And also, he says it's gotten better over time, but the whole idea with electronic adapters, it was kind of a hassle trying to figure that out. But I think things are becoming much more common. Now, my brother, the other world traveler, I got to talk to him a little bit, and he was more into like, is it a journey or a destination? If it's a journey, enjoy every step along the way. If it's a destination, just get there. Yeah.
So do you know the advice to travelers is choose the type of trip you want first before you choose your destination?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Say that again.
So choose the type of trip you want to have first. So is it an adventure? Is it peaceful and relaxing? Is it romantic? And then choose the destination that fits your choice.
And then I asked him for some other tips for our listeners, and he said, well, be ready for the unexpected, and be ready for when things don't go right. And I thought
because they often don't.
And like flights canceled. I remember myself being one time in Atlanta, and believe it or not, at the airport, and a tornado had just come across the runway, I guess. Yep. People were freaking out there, right?
Right.
And instead of, I look over at the line for something, and I see like 100 people there, and it's similar to what he advised. He said, pick up the phone and call like a travel.
Yeah.
And so I called like instantly some rental car and got it and bypassed everybody.
Yeah.
Doing those kind of things. But then, what's funny, and it's kind of I asked him about different things, and he'd been to Galapagos, I guess. Is that, where Darwin is and evolution had begun?
Okay, that's a big trip. So he does a little research before he travels.
Oh, yeah, he's much more of these things. Saudi Arabia, Singapore.
That's cool.
Because, he kind of made a funny thing how culturally things are different. And he said there's an area over there at Singapore, and there's 1,000 bicycles. Wow. Right? But there's one sign that says somebody took one bike. Right?
Wow.
It was like a big deal.
They were in prison.
Crime in prison.
For the rest of their life.
Pretty much.
In
those
Singapore.
Types of things. And he said, if you ever go to China, don't ask what you're eating, just eat it. Because if you ever figure that out.
Yeah, no thank you.
But, what's interesting, and kind of a good way to kind of wrap this up was, I said to him, what? You've traveled all over the world. I don't even want to leave, my backyard. I'm going to stay.
You want to stay in Akron.
And I said, where did this all come from? And he goes, you remember those travel logs our neighbors did? And they would get us in their living room, shut the lights.
My uncle would make us sit and watch his travel videos. They were the most boring videos I ever saw in my life.
And that inspired him to want to be a world traveler.
Wow.
I remember like falling asleep or trying to get out
100%.
of those things.
They're boring.
But we've got great travels in mind. We want everyone to have that adventure.
Yeah, and we could go on for days talking about places we'd love to go and all of that, except for Gary. It might just take an hour because he doesn't want to leave the United States.
If I can't see it, I'm not going there, right?
Right. Gary's not going anywhere, but maybe 30 miles from his home. So anyway, everyone, want to thank you again for listening to us. Please share our podcast. We appreciate all of our listeners. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.